Ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to another Both Sides podcast. We're here with a very elusive man that we've tried to book a few times, but we've locked him down. Zach Rabin, welcome to Both Sides.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
All right, so mate, we've tried to lock you down a few times. First time being in a Bali airport, when I think we were probably a bit hungover, but we're here now, mate. I've watched you grow significantly very quickly over a few years. From the outside looking in, it's just been a crazy trajectory upwards. Can you touch a bit on the growth pattern that you've had? I know you've been on another couple of podcasts and touched on it previously, but just for our listeners that haven't heard your story, can we go delve back into when you started in real estate and then what your growth trajectory has been like?
Sure. So started in another local Ray White office as an associate, was there for 3 years, had a pretty tough boss at the time, which was definitely necessary for where I was in my life and my career.
When you say tough boss, what do you mean?
Just very strict. He was, when it came to time management, the way I presented myself, the way I acted in front of vendors, the way that I acted outside of work hours, he was very strict, and I definitely needed that at the time. So he whipped me into shape very quickly. Eventually moved on to another office and went to a boutique office, another local office in Double Bay. Went standalone agent for just 1 year and then started kicking some goals. And then Gavin relentless and aggressively pursued me to the point that it was time for me to get really uncomfortable, moved to TRG, and kind of everything popped off since then.
Why did he poach you so hard, do you think? What was the reasons?
We were actually having a discussion about this last week. He thought I was charismatic and polarizing at the time. He thought there was no characters in the industry and that I would have been a great fit to what TRG was looking to build. I had uploaded a few Instagram photos of me sitting on aggressively large signboards in quite dangerous spots and positions, which was attracting some attention from the marketplace. And he thought that at the time I was selling properties in black jeans, Nikes, and a t-shirt. Wow. And he thought that he could, get me on board, and just reshape me, not change me, but just reshape me. And turned out to be a good investment for both of us.
That's really interesting because when you initially were speaking, you had a strict boss that polished you. So did you switch back to a more relaxed attire before coming to TRG?
Absolutely. I think I was butting heads a bit with my old boss. A lot of respect for him. Truly owe him a lot, but was just butting heads because I wanted to do things my way. Always have. And, started doing things my way when I became a standalone agent. Being at a boutique agency, there's less rules and you can just be more yourself. And then, when I came to TRG, I thought, it's time to do things the right way if I want to build myself at the pace that I want to build myself. Yep.
TRG, like you come into the office, is all quite polished, the suit agency, everything's that kind of 5-star. How does that compare? How does that influence your performance now as an agent versus where you were operating prior?
Oh, look, I think I'm just matured as a person, and as an agent. I'm more comfortable being known as the agent as opposed to just half in, half out. So you actually want to stand out by being presentable, and the clients that we deal with, they make judgment based on how you look, majority of them. So it's always good to present quite sharply.
Would you give that advice to a younger agent now that may be not working at TRG?
100%. I definitely think it's crucial, to be consistently just identified as that sharp agent that's always on. And I think that's definitely something that goes hand in hand with that.
I think the first way I started noticing you is you were doing a lot of off markets. Can you touch a bit on what you were doing previously and why it's changed a little bit?
Sure. I think at the time I was a standalone and I was just getting my foot in the door of big properties. I was going up against, the Gavin Rubinsteins and Kai Thomases of the world. And, I didn't have much of a hope because I didn't have the reputation or the brand behind me in order to compete with them. So my point of difference was give me an opportunity. They were pushing for fully marketed properties. I was pushing for 2 weeks, 4 weeks of exclusivity, told them that I had X amount of buyers that I'm working with. And
really working with.
X amount of buyers. And then I would secure the listing. And, you know, I actually was from an early age extremely good at buyer work. So I'd identify the right buyer. I was always quite a good negotiator, and I'd just negotiate, bridge the gap, and get the deals done off market.
And do you think that's where, because I started off in a very similar position, pushing off markets, and I think that's how I cracked it. Like, I was coming up against a $4 million agent at the time, who was the number one agent in the area. So that was my only way in.
Sure.
Was to say, well, no marketing. Now, I think it all came, my success more came off the back of what I did after that, the marketing of the off markets and videos and drops and what have you. Is that how you leveraged? Were you just leveraging hard on the off markets, and that's what picked it up to a point where now you went, okay, now I've got the leverage point where I can just say, okay, let's come to market?
Yeah, 100%. So I would always leverage every result that I had made and that the office that I was working in had made. So it's all about being present in everyone's mind. So when you do call or door knock, I used to door knock a lot. You know, you say you're Zach Rabin from whichever agency, they already know who you are, even though they haven't seen you around. They've heard your name or they've seen it on social media. So it's all about just essentially just putting yourself out there just to be everywhere. So when you do say your name, you know, at least they've got some sort of alarm bells on their head.
And so it sounds like when you were starting out, leveraging off markets was a way to get a listing. How did you think about prospecting? Were you patch driven? Was there a certain clientele or property type you're focusing on?
Not really. I would just take everything I could get. I was pretty rogue. I'd just make, you know, I would just make as many calls as possible. I would door knock every day consistently. Not many junior agents were door knocking at that stage, and off markets weren't, you know, as common. So, you know, the fact that I would wait till the clouds appeared and the rain would start, and I would target properties that I really wanted based on the fact that it was raining and they couldn't say no because I was drenched. So they'd invite me in and have the conversation from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I guess when did it start changing from off market to on market, and what was the switch?
I think when having the initial chats with Gav and I joined TRG, what he wanted to build was a brand around Zach Rabin, and he showed old pictures of me in my black jeans, black t-shirt, white Nikes, sitting on top of signboards, and said, this is great. I don't want to change this, but imagine what we could do if we polished you to the TRG standard. And then once polished, he wanted to build my brand as mentioned. So the only way to build a brand essentially is to get recognition in the community. And that's by, you know, having marketed listings, signboards up, and then, you know, you get calls off the back of signboards and, you know, just get more and more listings from there.
It's a hard thing for me to look back on now because it's a bit of a different story, what has been for a fair few years. But when you're a smaller boutique and you're coming up against, for example, a TRG or someone with a lot of market share, what would be your advice to the agents at those offices which are comfortable within those agencies, don't want to move, they like that boutique brand, but they want to take on people at bigger agencies that can say, we've got X amount of buyers to bring you off the back of all these sales?
Yeah. Just find your niche, you know, be yourself, find what your strengths are and use your strengths, and let everyone know what your strengths are. You know, there's always, every agency, a TRG or the big agencies can say they've got X amount of buyers, but what's your point of difference? If you're at a smaller agency, there's got to be some sort of point of difference that you're running with, and you just need to find that point of difference, truly believe in it, and just leverage that and run with it.
Yeah. I think one thing that yourself and the whole of the TRG guys are very good at is the social media and getting the right impact off it. What would be your advice for younger agents for social media? Because I think a lot of agents can get caught up with it and it doesn't actually bring much results whatsoever. However, but if you crack it right, it works right. So what do you do?
Essentially, you have to become a hustle agent before being an attraction agent. So no, you can't be an attraction agent if you don't have any listings. So the hustle comes in the first 5 to 10 years. You need to build an amazing reputation, an amazing brand, and then start leveraging, you know, your small, medium or large listings off social media. But no one really cares about social media if they don't know who you are. So first and foremost, you have to do the foundation work, and that's, you know, making the calls, doing the door knocks, getting the listings, doing the hard yards. And then once you do that, you get the credibility, people start to notice you, and that's when you can kind of push the social aspect. But yes, I agree. It's very, very, very difficult to get listings from social media.
In terms of social media, like I understand it's played quite a pivotal part in how you sell properties. Like, because I've seen you do a lot of, like, with you post your off markets
Sure.
and all these types of selling properties. Do you actually sell much on social media?
Yeah, look, I'm always looking for shortcuts and ways to be at the forefront of the industry. I'm extremely efficient with my money when it comes to social media and my strategy. Look, I often get approached about new companies, and one that really stands out is one called the Real Estate Portal.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I've been using them for the last couple of weeks and months, and that's definitely given me that competitive advantage. Yeah.
With the Real Estate Portal, so do you sell properties through that, or what? How does that?
So essentially, it's an AI-generated platform that targets specific channels and targets specific properties and specific buyers, and it's just a really effective way for us to attract buyers, to our properties.
You're paying $3,300. Like,
Sorry?
you paying realestate.com.au prices or?
No, I'm not 100% sure the actual price. I believe it was only about $250. I actually 2 weeks ago sold a property in North Bondi. I got called in and I was 50-50 whether I was going to take it on because the vendor wanted a bit of a premium. Ended up taking it on, and within 48 hours, Talia from my team had arranged 3 high-res photos, sent it to the Real Estate Portal, and 24 hours later, we ran an off-market or pre-market inspection. The Real Estate Portal generated 4 buyers from the platform, 2 of which were extremely interested, ended up negotiating and sold it for a building record. So
Wow.
72-hour turnaround. I think the most crucial part is that I like to keep things simple, and it was literally a 2-minute exercise to get the photos and then send them into the platform, and then the rest was done by AI.
It's funny. There's a house. I'm not sure if you saw it. There's a big single level house on Acres Road in my core area, and it was. I think they had it under contract for $500,000 more. So the buyer only just pulled out recently. $500,000 more than the previous single level suburb record that was set, and it's nice, and it's on a busy road, and the buyer came straight off the back of an Instagram ad. Nuts. Buyer pulled out.
But once again, I mean, if you're doing a normal boost, you don't know where it's targeting, so it could just be sending them to agents, which is irrelevant, or vendors that, or people that are renting. I think the whole point is being at the forefront essentially of technology and using the reality of the world that we're living in at the moment, and just having that competitive advantage. So any which way you can do it in order to attract the right buyers to the right properties, sign me up.
Where did those buyers come from? Like, how do they get in contact? Through the app?
I'm actually not too sure about the T's and C's. All I know is we sent the photos, we gave them a specific brief as to where the buyer may come from, and it was all AI generated targeted audience. So it's unbelievable. Yeah.
In terms of social media, what other strategies are you implementing? Because I do see you do quite a bit on there. Are there any strategies you'd recommend other agents do or yourself?
Look, I tend, once again, 99% of my business is just hustle mentality. I think the 1% is attraction, where a lot of the vendors who I'm targeting, they want to see results. So essentially, I very rarely put up just listeds. I more promote myself with properties that have just sold. So it's more just to build a brand for myself.
Yeah. So more credibility. So
Correct.
when they see you, they've got
Correct.
The one thing that I've seen that is good, that over the past few years, like, you've hit this success, but you haven't fallen off. You stay consistent, no matter if it's a good market or bad market. How do you keep a stable mindset when the market's fluctuating?
I'm immersed in this industry. It took me some time to come to the realization that I'm Zach Rabin, the real estate agent. So now that I'm extremely comfortable in my own skin, the consistency comes from waking up at 4:30 on the dot every morning, having the same routine, going to the gym, having a sauna, having a very healthy lifestyle when it comes to having breakfast, and just being extremely consistent. Like, I'm training 6 to 7 days a week. My mind's always working in the right direction, and I'm always just on the ball. Yeah.
What do you do when you're not?
Next question. No, like I'm only human, right? So at the moment, I'm going 50 days, no alcohol, no social media, meditating daily, reading daily, and then that goes till the beginning of December, and then I've got a target in mind in which I'll let my hair down, and it's a bit more of a relaxed time in December. So it's all about understanding when it's time to perform and when it's time just to relax, and it's all about balance.
Yeah.
Was there a tough moment in your career that sticks out where you were at breaking point?
I wouldn't say it was at breaking point. I think there was a week when I just got back from my July holiday where I had about 6 proposals booked in for one day, and of those 6, 5 back to back to back within 4 hours I lost, and I started second guessing everything, and I really needed those listings because that's going to kickstart your new financial year. I don't really get too hard on myself. I know that if I just stay consistent, stay true to myself, keep doing what I'm doing, I don't push myself too hard, but I don't slacken off. So it's all about just that consistency. And I know if I just keep doing the work, I'll get the results. It's always happened. So 100%. Yeah.
How'd you bounce back from that situation?
I stayed at work very late that night, ended up booking another proposal, went there at 7 a.m. the next morning and listed an $8 million property, and then straight back on the wagon.
So it's just about pushing through, right?
100%.
So what is that blueprint for Zach when it comes to the hustle mode? How many connects are you doing? Are you door knocking, sourcing data? What is that process on a weekly basis?
Sure. I get in about 8 o'clock, have a team meeting 8 till 8:15, and then from 8:15 till 12, no one's allowed to speak to me in the office, and it's just cold calling. I tend to do more warm calling and nurturing calls, where I've got 2 associates at the moment doing some cold calling. So essentially that's where I've found I get majority of my leads from, is just by bombarding people with phone calls and just having those. It's also about making the right calls, not just pointless calls, adding value to clients, and then that just sets up the day. I'd say I probably do at least 25 connects a day consistently. I know agents who will do 40 or 50, but I just know I'll burn out, and I'd rather, do those 30, think about my next steps, and then just pivot according to how the day's going.
Yeah. In those calls, are you sourcing for a new opportunity to go and do a listing appointment? Like, who's ready to sell now?
Yeah, I tend to only deal with the warmer clients that are about 3 to 6 months away from selling. So it's all about just nurturing them. First thing I do, I open up Real Estate and Domain, look at the recent listings, recent sales, and then educate my vendors, on my pipeline about, what's coming up, what's just sold, and just adding value just so you're front of mind. You don't want to call them and just say an irrelevant, have an irrelevant conversation, because what's the point? You want to be their trusted advisor and add value to the process.
In terms of hours, what time are you getting in usually, and what time would you say your last appointment finishes?
Sure. Usually get in around 8:15. And then my last appointment, usually around 7 o'clock, 7:30. I like to come home. I cook every night, 5-6 days a week. I love to cook. So
Favorite dish?
Favorite dish? I'm simple. I just like a steak, vegetables, and some carbs, sweet potato, or a fish, or some chicken. I don't discriminate. As long as it's high protein, I'm in.
So you get back from work, cook, then just go straight to sleep?
Yeah, I like to unwind, maybe watch 30 minutes of TV, maybe read a bit of a book. Talk a bit of shit with my roommate or my partner, and then just doze off to bed. But by the end of it, I'm exhausted. It's never a struggle. It's just head down and I'm out.
How do you manage a relationship when you're working these sorts of hours?
Yeah, you have to have a partner that's extremely understanding and supportive. If you're a successful real estate agent or successful business person that's sacrificing 6 days a week, you have to have an understanding partner. Otherwise, it's just very rare that it's going to work out. You need someone who's ambitious or who allows you to be ambitious. So it's just finding the right fit.
I know a lot of times in the past, and I know a lot of friends as well that are in real estate where they'll come home and they're completely cooked. They can't speak to their partner, whatever it may be. What would be your advice to agents in those positions where they're just cooked, they can't talk?
Yeah, look, that I did struggle with that early on in my career. I think what I've done differently is when I'm at home, I'm present. I struggled to be present. I was always on. I was responding to inquiries within 20 seconds. That was my point of difference in first 5 years of my career. Now I'll get home and I'll put my phone in another room. and I'll just focus on quality time, with my partner or whoever I'm with. It's really important to have that balance. Otherwise, you're never going to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
In terms of ambition, what would you say your ambition's like at the moment? What would you love to achieve?
Sure. I'm a simple person. I'm more like I set goals for 6 to 12 months max, no further. At the moment, I've hit every one of my goals since joining TRG just over 3 years ago. My next goal would be top 5 salespeople in the Ray White network.
Top 5?
Yeah.
How come not top 3?
I like to be present at home and I like to have a balanced life. But, after top 5 definitely comes, top 2 for sure.
Love that one.
Yeah.
And when you're saying, more present at home and having a more balanced life, I'm presuming in terms of holidays as well, they're a lot more structured. What does your holiday periods look like throughout the year, and how much time are you taking off throughout the year?
Yeah, I think holidays are quite important for me, just to kind of keep my focus levels quite high when I'm at work, and I tend to burn out after about 3 to 4 months. So I tend to take a week off, in September or March, and then end of financial year in July, and over Christmas I'll take 3 to 4 weeks off holiday and just completely switch off. And I'm very open with my vendors, and I just say, if you want me at my best, you just need me to relax, recover, and be ready for when I get back.
So, question on that: do you bring like a co-agent in, for example, to run a campaign if you're not going to be there throughout that campaign? Do you let your team run it? What does it look like?
Well, I usually structure my listings so that they're all wrapped up prior to me going away. But if for whatever reason the property's still available and hasn't sold, I've got an amazing team where, they're mature agents. I've got a head of operations. So it allows me to have the resources that if that does occur, I can comfortably go away and just, relinquish all control and have an understanding that they're just going to continue the quality, that Team Rabin consistently gives.
Fantastic. And in terms of like your core area and the way that you work, how do you operate your business? Because I've been speaking to a couple of younger associates this week in terms of how they're going to operate moving forward. Do you believe in core areas, core patches? How do you work it?
I do believe in core areas, core patches. I wouldn't say I have a specific core area. I do 4 or 5 suburbs. Every time I try to hone in and focus on 1 or 2 core areas, I pick up a couple of pocket listings off, in another suburb and just leverage those and end up getting a few more. So I tend to get shiny ball syndrome when I just see something shiny and I jump at it. So if it's an exciting property, as mentioned, I'm not going to discriminate. I'll go for it and then try to leverage that pocket and just continue. But I think as I'm getting a bit more progressed and mature in my career, I am definitely trying to hone in and just try to do 2 or 3 core areas to focus on.
Yeah. And how many homes within those core suburbs?
Oh, you're looking at about 2 to 3,500
per suburb.
Per suburb, yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of like how let's say for example you were to start all over again, how would you structure your business moving forward and like to ensure that your growth is the same, if not better than what it was previously?
I would focus on core areas. I would find 1 core suburb and I would not call any property. I wouldn't even go to any appraisals, even if I was called in, and I would just focus on that suburb. For the first 3 years, I would dominate that suburb and then eventually, grow and find a second core and a third core, because I feel like when you go on real estate and domain as a potential vendor, you're going to search who are the best and most dominant agents in that suburb, and you want to be getting called in. You don't want to be hustling and having to make numerous calls daily as your career progresses. You want to have that presence in the core area, so you just get call-ins, and it's a lot easier and more consistent.
Since coming to TRG, what have been some of the changes to your business you've implemented to get to your point where you're a $3 million rider?
Yeah.
What changed?
Team. It's all about team. I understand what my strengths are. There's only so many hours in the day. As soon as my database was getting too large for me to manage, I would hire someone else who could assist me in managing the database. They would be siphoning through and finding vendors that are, let's say, 12 to 24 months away, and they would nurture them. And then, when they're 6 to 3 months away, pass them on to me. Once that got a bit too, crowded, I would put on a third associate who I felt like I was lacking in getting new leads, so a lead generator, and they'd, go door knocking and use the hustle mentality and find more cold leads to add to the database for the other associate to nurture and then eventually pass on to me.
So do you guys go to non-selling appraisals as well, or is that off the cards?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I like to make sure that there's a bit of motivation for the vendors.
Yeah.
And if it's just a price check, if it's something that I'm, enthusiastic about, I'll definitely go.
Yeah. In terms of moving forward, how do you plan to go from top 10 to top 5? What's the
Very
the
good
game
question. I think just stay consistent. I mean, the way that I've grown has, it's not rocket science. I've just been consistent throughout my whole career, and especially in the last 3 years since moving to TRG. If I just keep doing the basics, my name is, it's getting out there, keep doing the fundamentals, keep growing the team, keep the quality control in my team, to the top tier, and then everything else will work its way out. And it's just working smart, as mentioned, real estate portal, other platforms that you can just work a lot smarter as opposed to just cold calling 5 different suburbs. Just
leverage.
Yeah, 100%.
Leverage it. In terms of, actually, sorry, there's a good viewer question here that I wanted to ask. Where is it? What is the one thing you didn't do yesterday that you regret not doing?
Honestly, nothing. I think,
Do you think you'd live life with no regrets?
Are we talking about personal life or real estate?
Everything.
When it comes to real estate, honestly, nothing. I think from starting at the larger agency in Double Bay to the boutique agency to where I am today, I think that is the perfect upbringing, to build me as a person, as an agent. If I started at TRG, I wouldn't be in real estate right now, no doubt. So it was, it's just having to have that really strict boss for the first 3 years, having the more relaxed boss in a boutique agency for the second, for the 4th and 5th year, and then, coming into an office like TRG, I was prepared for, what it takes.
Would you say TRG, between strict and unstrict, where would you see them fitting?
I don't think it's strict. I mean, there's no rules for me as an associate director or as a standalone agent. For associates, I think it's extremely competitive, and as the 5 or 6 standalone agents at TRG are such high performance agents, we want to have the best associates, and the best associates want to be here. So if you are just getting into the industry and you haven't experienced what it takes to be a quality associate, maybe it's better to go to another agency to understand what it takes to be an associate in general. And then if you want to take it up to that next level, it's an amazing place to fast track your career, no matter which position you're in.
You would have seen some good associates come through these doors and some bad associates. What are the key differences between the two?
Consistency. A lot of associates can talk a big game in the interview, they'll get hired, and then within 3 to 6 months they'll crash and burn. A lot of associates believe that real estate's all about the flashy suits, the social media, but the really great and successful associates know that it's about grinding, and hustling, and 99% of it's, making the calls, doing the door knocks, and the associates that are focused and willing to make sacrifices to get to where they want to be, which is a standalone and a high performance agents. Those are the ones that really shine out.
What about on the other side of the fence for a buyer's agent, being a selling agent? What advice would you give for buyer's agents from your side?
Sorry, repeat that.
So being a selling agent, dealing with buyer's agents, what advice would you give to buyer's agents?
Yeah, perfect. I think communication. I'm a big communicator. So if we're referring or dealing with buyer's agents in general, it's really good to have constant communication. I'm a very direct operator. I think that's my point of difference. I don't sugarcoat anything, and it's important that when you're dealing with a like-minded individual like a buyer's agent who has a common interest in getting the deal done or servicing their clients, it's just open communication and constant communication. Play less games, understand what the client's needs are, talk to me openly, and just try to get it done.
What are some mistakes you think buyer's agents have made with you in the past?
They treat us as though we're a client as opposed to a partner. I think we should all be working with each other as partners, because essentially, as mentioned, we've got a common goal. So if you're trying to play games when it comes down to negotiations, like, we're all there to negotiate for our clients. Myself as the seller, selling agent, them as the buying agent. but have that sense of transparency and respect for one another. And, you know, the people who do that, you know, it works out favorably for both parties.
Yeah, I agree. Another viewer question here. Do you monitor your calls, connects, KPIs, any of it?
I don't, no. I used to when I was associate and when I first started. But as the days are progressing, as mentioned, I don't need to. I feel, you know, I'm doing those 3 hours of calls every morning. That sets myself up for the rest of the day. If I have a 2-3 hour gap, I'll always jump on the phones because I know that's what's going to get me the listings in 3, 6, 9, 12 months. So why wouldn't you? And I've gone through patches throughout my career where I've listed and sold 4 or 5 or 6 properties in a month and then had nothing for another month. And there's no worse feeling because you know your potential, and then you have one big month and one extremely disappointing month. So if you consistently be on the phones or prospect, then you'll never have those months.
Do you track your assistants numbers at all?
Yeah. We use a system, and they enter, or it automatically enters their call log about
From
how
their
many
mobiles?
from their mobiles, so we can see
What's that?
the company.
Yeah, what's the app?
It's called Sales Trail.
Sales Trail.
Yeah, so
Right.
TRG as a whole use it, and it's a bit competitive with all the associates where you don't want to be known as, you know, the bottom associates when it comes to making calls. But realistically, it's not about making the calls, making the connects. It's about having the quality. So essentially, I'm not too fussed if my associate wants to make 50 calls or 100 calls. If they're getting more appraisals from 50 calls and they're having better conversations, you know, whatever works, you know, best for them. Yeah.
Do you track your listing appointments, appraisals, and things like that?
No. I know I should, and there's definitely, you know, some aspects in the business that I will be going over Christmas and, you know, in the next few months that I definitely need improving on. And, you know, I feel like the next time I'll be going through that which is hopefully never, when I do have a bit of a quiet patch, but it's just been so, you know, so quick and so fast in the last 12, 24 months that I haven't, you know, I've been pretty slack. I haven't found time to do that, which it's not really a good excuse.
I stopped looking at numbers a couple of years ago. Tell me what you think about this, if you think it's the right or wrong thing. But I had a really good month. I did 440 grand, and then the next month I did like 70.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I bad? Did I just fluke the last
Yeah.
month? Like, am I actually just not good and the market's just really good? And it made me second guess myself. And then the next few months after that were horrendous. And that's because I was just thinking I'm just bad. So after that, I was like, nah, I'm not going to look at my numbers. Didn't know my GCI. I don't know how many lists I sell per month. I just go base off, okay, I'm feeling good. That's all that matters. I'm just going to call. Do you think that's the right way to look at it or a wrong way to look at it?
I'm pretty goal driven, but I agree. This is such a bipolar industry where every month for myself in particular is like a new season. You know, so last month you'll write 300K, and then this month you're 10 days in, you haven't made a sale and you're a complete failure, and you start looking at other jobs in other industries. So, you know, I think everyone's different. I personally like to set myself very achievable and realistic goals every month. And then it keeps you motivated to hit those goals. And the goals are still extremely ambitious, but they're achievable. And then as long as you're hitting them every month, you know, you're on track to...
What if you're not hitting them every month and then you start feeling down on yourself after 3 or 4 months?
I think you create your own luck, where if you're not hitting them, you know the reason deep down why you're not hitting them. You know, something needs to change. Maybe you need to socialize less during the week, work more hours during the week, maybe work some Sundays. You know, ultimately the amount of calls or door knocks or prospecting sessions or, you know, good conversations we have will amount to business in the next few months. So, you know, if you're an agent that's been around for long enough, you know where the flaws are.
Yeah, I think it's. I saw Alex Hormozi say it last week, and it's all in the work that you're avoiding, right?
100%.
It's all in the work you're avoiding, and I think we keep coming back to this on the podcast, but I think real estate is actually quite simple. It's just people don't keep consistent with the simple.
You look at my notepad daily, and there's like four tasks to do every single day. You tick them off, and the rest will work out. It's extremely simple.
So I'm going through this with my guys at the moment, and what I've said to my guys is, what you're going to track your own numbers, so you're accountable to yourself, not to me. Now, I think that sets them up better for when they go off on their own. But when you have a look at all these agents, and when they do go off on their own, they go more that way than that way.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is it because they're not trained to think for themselves, or
Yeah.
what do you think it is?
I think it's probably coming from the way that they're bosses have taught them, where I like to throw my associates in the deep end, even if, you know, they feel very uncomfortable, because eventually they'll need to be thrown in the deep end and swim. You know, they've always got me there to back them up, but I want them to have a mind of their own and to have their own kind of mini brand within my brand. So I think it's really crucial that they educate themselves and be true to themselves. You know, I've got my different way of operating, but I'm all for them challenging my way if their way works a bit better for them. So essentially my goal, short-term goal, is to build up, you know, one of my associates to be a standalone agent and see them, you know, write consistent GCI. That would be the ultimate goal for me.
Yeah, I feel like I'm at the same point.
Yeah.
One last question for you. So how old are you now, and what age was it when you turned on the jets? Like, what was that ticking point for you where you go, no, now I'm going to go hard. This is it.
Just turned 33. I've been in the industry since I was 25, so I started pretty late. I've only been in the industry for 8 years. Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing for the first 3 years. I actually got fired from my first job after 3 years. And I was considering leaving the industry. I didn't think it was for me. I feel like I'm the type that I'm a pretty slow learner, but once I get it, I get it. I think when I realized that I belong in the industry was my first month at TRG. I came, and I've said this story previously, but there was 5 other high performance agents in the office. It was like Oliver Lavers, Kai Thomas, Gavin Rubenstein, Patrick Cosgrove, and one other. And the first month I wrote $20,000, and Gavin pulled me aside, showed me the results of the other boys. It was 180, 220, 250, 280, and 375. And he said, I like you, and I understand you've just come here with no associate, no EA, but this doesn't happen again. And I'm thinking, holy shit, what have I got myself into? And then, you know, the next couple of weeks, it was just head down, ass up. I didn't move from my chair. I didn't speak to one person. I worked extremely long hours, and I wrote, at the time, I think it was like 380K for the next month.
Wow. And
And that's when I knew, like, you know, I belonged here, and, you know, I'm worthy of being in this position. And my previous record for a year was 400K, and I did that pretty much in 1 month. So
How old were you at that point?
just turned 30,
Yeah.
29, 30.
So some people get, driven by the stick. Some people get driven by the carrot. Sounds like you get driven by the stick.
100%. I don't like shiny objects. I just like to get better and better every day. So, you know, I've put myself in, arguably for myself, what was the most uncomfortable situation and environment to be in order to grow. At the time, I had some personal things that, you know, I just bought a property, solid relationship, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to throw myself in the deep end, see how I went, and everything worked out quite well.
A lot of people avoid the hard stuff, which you're talking about, avoid that sort of work. Do you, like, I'm not sure, how was your childhood like growing up? Did you have a hard childhood and then now you're looking like it's easy for you? Or do you think you had an easy childhood, so you're like, no, I need hard?
I had a really privileged upbringing, you know, loving parents. Shout out to my mum and dad, love you. And, you know, great school, great community, grew up in the area. So I feel like I've always had, I was an athlete as a kid, and I always loved to push myself, not so much at school, more so after school or in sports. Every day I like to get uncomfortable. If I'm not getting uncomfortable, I truly believe I'm not growing, you know, whether it be real estate or not real estate. You know, I used to hate the cold, and now I ice bath 6 days a week. You know, I used to hate running, and now, you know, I run a lot. So just put yourself in uncomfortable positions. And I tell that to my team, and I say, make the calls that you really do not want to make. Worst case scenario is not even that bad. You make a mistake, you hang up the phone, and you move on to the next. So that's why I like to throw them in the deep end and just get them really comfortable with being uncomfortable. And, you know, that's how you grow as a person.
I agree.
What's been the best advice you've received this year?
I think just stay true to yourself. You know, you get really distracted with, you get extremely distracted with everything that's going around you, you know, being exposed to what we're exposed to as, you know, high performance agents in this type of environment, in this area. But just stay true to yourself, stay humble, stay loyal to the people, you know, around you. And, you know, I think what's important, have a little inner circle of people that you can really trust, and everything else, does it really matter? A little bit, But just, you know, stay true to yourself and everything will be fine.
Stoic mindset coming through from no social media and no drinking.
That's it.
Well, mate, appreciate it. You're the best.
Perfect. Thanks, gents.
My man. Thank you, bro.
All good.